Welcome to Verge File.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. She didn't cheat in the way most people expect. No lipstick on a collar. No late-night text from someone named Matt from work. What she did was worse. Colder. More surgical. It started with silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that buzzes in your ears at dinner. That thickens when you reach out to touch her and feel her body flinch. Not because she's scared, but because you're not on the menu anymore. "You'll get affection when I feel like it," she said once. Not in anger. Not even in sarcasm. Just flat, like she was reading off policy changes from HR. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I smiled. And I started disappearing. Not physically. That would have made it easy for her to feel righteous. No. I disappeared like heat leaving a room. Slowly. Quietly. Irreversibly. First to go were the questions. I stopped asking how her day was. Stopped reminding her to pack lunch or check the mailbox. She didn't notice. Of course not. The second thing I withdrew was effort. I no longer planned dinners. No more random flower deliveries. No small surprises to make her feel seen. Funny, right? How someone claims they need space until you actually give them what they asked for. The third withdrawal was time. I started staying later at work. Joined a boxing gym. Spent long weekends hiking trails without reception. Didn't tell her where I was. Didn't check in. The first week, she thrived. Walked around the house like she'd been unchained. Blasted music. Watched trash TV on full volume. Posted thirst traps under the guise of self-love. Week 2. The cracks began. She cooked dinner, twice. Left it on the stove like bait. I ate cereal. Washed my bowl. Went to bed. She wore that robe I bought her last Christmas. The one she hadn't touched in 6 months. Sat close to me on the couch. Legs brushing mine. I stood up and took the trash out. She started hovering. Waiting by the door when I came home. Asking where I'd been. "Oh, just around," I'd say. Then smile. The same way she smiled when I used to ask who she was texting at midnight. That was the shift. The moment she realized I wasn't sulking. I wasn't punishing. I was transforming. Not into someone else. Into who I was before her. And the best part? She saw every step of it. But it was already too late to stop me. She didn't panic at first. She thought this was a phase. Some moody reaction from a man who'd gotten too emotional. So she waited. Gave me space the way a queen gives a subject time to cool off. But what she didn't realize was, I wasn't cooling off. I was freezing over. The change wasn't loud. It was deliberate. I started waking up before her. Leaving the house without saying a word. No coffee made. No reminders on the fridge. No soft "see you tonight." She texted once around noon. "Everything okay?" I replied. "Busy." That night, she was dressed in something she hadn't worn in months. Dinner on the table. Wine poured. Music playing. Like a scene she hoped I'd step into and forget everything she'd said, everything she'd stopped being. I sat down. Ate. Didn't compliment the food. Didn't ask about her day. Didn't touch the wine. When she reached across the table, fingertips light, unsure, I leaned back in my chair as if adjusting posture. Her hand froze midair, then retreated. I cleared my plate, rinsed it, and left the kitchen. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was surgical. She used to weaponize silence like a shield. Now she was choking on it. The next morning, she waited by the door. Said she'd made lunch for me. I nodded. Didn't take it. Walked out without meeting her eyes. Later that week, she showed up at my office unannounced. First time ever. Brought coffee. Smiled too wide. Just passing by. I accepted the cup. Didn't invite her in. Back home that evening, she tried again. Lit candles. Played our old playlist. Left her phone face down. I opened a book. Read every word. Let the music play like background noise from a life I didn't live anymore. She sat on the couch, fidgeting. Eyes flicking toward me every few minutes like she expected something. Anything. But I gave her nothing. Because by then, the most powerful thing I had wasn't anger or tears. It was the fact that I had finally stopped needing her. She had been the sun in a world I built around her. Now, she was just light I could block with one move. And the scariest part for her? She was starting to feel the cold. And she didn't know how to bring back warmth she'd taken for granted for years. There's a moment, quiet and sharp, when you realize someone stopped loving you long before they stopped living with you. It came to me while folding laundry. Hers, mine, all of it blurred into a routine I no longer felt part of. I folded her favorite sweater, paused, and dropped it back into the basket. I wasn't angry. I was done folding symbols of comfort she no longer gave. I started removing her in pieces. First, the shared calendar. I stopped syncing schedules. No more reminders about dentist appointments or dinner with her coworkers. She asked once, confused, "Didn't we have something Thursday night?" I shrugged. Must have slipped my mind. Next, photos. From my phone. From my desk at work. From the cloud. Each image was a lie. A curated smile meant to trick the world, and me, into believing she still saw me. The third was digital. Passwords changed. Streaming accounts logged out. I reclaimed my space without ceremony. She noticed when Netflix asked her to sign in. I was in the other room, door half shut. She asked, "Did something happen to the account?" I said, "Yeah, I streamlined everything." She paused, waiting for an explanation I didn't offer. That weekend, I cleaned the garage, boxed up our old vacation souvenirs, labeled them storage. I watched her walk past the boxes, eyes flicking to the words she didn't ask about. By now, she understood something was shifting, but she didn't know where the center had gone. One night, she tried to kiss me. No warning, no build-up, just leaned in, desperate to rewind something without knowing which button to press. I turned slightly, let her lips brush the edge of my cheek. She pulled back, humiliated. I kept reading my book. This wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. I wasn't performing pain anymore. I wasn't mourning a marriage that had died months ago in her silence and dismissive glances. I was preparing for departure, not just from the house, from the version of me that waited, begged, hoped, because that man was already gone, and the version that remained didn't need her apology, didn't crave her touch, didn't fear her absence. He welcomed it. She had always believed I'd wait, that I'd orbit her mood swings, absorb the silence, adjust myself to the climate of her indifference. And for a long time, I did. But now, the orbit had shifted, and she was floating in a space where my gravity no longer pulled. It started with how she watched me. Not with love, with suspicion, as if she was searching for proof that I had moved on emotionally, because she could feel it, even if I never said a word. She hovered in doorways now, asked questions that didn't matter. "What time will you be home? Are you working late again?" I answered simply, without warmth. Not to be cruel, but to be exact. I wasn't hiding anything, but I also wasn't volunteering anymore. She noticed the changes, subtle and sharp. The drawer where I kept my chargers and cologne, emptied. My gym bag packed and ready each morning, even on Sundays. I started eating before she got home. Not out of spite. Out of routine. Mine, not ours. She once came home to find me sitting on the porch, reading in silence. The dog at my feet. Beer in my hand. She stood behind the screen door for a full minute before saying, "You didn't wait for dinner?" I didn't look up. I wasn't hungry for company. That one landed. I could feel the weight of it through the door. She began doing what people do when they sense their grip slipping. She reached backwards. Movie nights. Soft touches. Conversations she used to ignore me for. She wore lipstick to the kitchen. Made pancakes on a Tuesday. But I didn't respond. Because I knew what this was. It wasn't love. It was fear. Fear that the man who once danced around the house just to make her smile had finally turned off the music. And worse, he wasn't asking her to dance anymore. She cried once. Late at night. Thought I was asleep. I wasn't. But I didn't turn over. Didn't ask what was wrong. Because I already knew. She was mourning something she never expected to lose. My attention. And in the quiet that followed, she was finally realizing what it cost to treat someone like a placeholder. The real shift wasn't when she noticed my silence. It was when she realized I liked it. Peace had replaced passion. Not the kind of peace you share with someone. The kind you find when you stop trying to resurrect something that died from neglect. I still lived in the same house. But emotionally, I was already gone. She felt it in the pauses. In the way I answered questions without asking any in return. In the meals I didn't compliment. In the way I touched the doorknob with more warmth than I touched her hand. One night, she tried something different. She brought out an old photo album. The early years. Vacations. Beach trips. The night we moved into the house. She sat on the couch, flipping pages, watching me from the corner of her eye. She laughed at old memories as if trying to conjure something back to life with sound. I looked up once, gave a nod, then went back to my book. She didn't laugh again after that. 2 days later, she cooked my favorite meal. Even lit a candle. She wore a blouse I once loved. I ate it. Said thank you. Didn't ask why. Because I already knew. It wasn't about me. It was about her reflection. She was fighting to see in my eyes the version of herself she used to admire. But she couldn't find it, because I'd stopped offering it. Later that night, she asked, "Do you want to watch something together?" I said, "You can put something on." She paused, then whispered, "I meant together." I didn't respond, because I didn't know her comfort for the silence she gave me for months. She used to treat my affection like a faucet, something she could turn off and expect to flow again when she felt thirsty. But now, she was standing at a well that had run dry. And for the first time, she couldn't find the handle. She started showing up in the rooms I was in, not with purpose, just presence. Sat at the table while I worked, folded clothes beside me instead of alone. But she didn't speak, because she could feel the energy shift. She was on the outside now. The worst part? I didn't push her there. She walked there herself, step by step, dismissive shrug by passive glance. And now that she wanted back in, the door was closed. Not locked, just forgotten. It was a Thursday when she finally broke her own pattern. I walked in from work, keys still in my hand, when I heard it, music playing softly from the living room. The lights were dimmed. The table was set for two. Real dishes, cloth napkins, even wine. She stood there in that old black dress, the one she hadn't worn in years. It still fit, but the confidence she used to wear it with was gone. She looked at me like she expected a reaction. I gave her a polite nod. "Smells good." I sat down. She poured the wine, served the food, tried to talk about my day. I answered in facts, not feelings. Halfway through the meal, she reached across the table, her hand landing softly on mine. "I miss us," she whispered. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. She waited. For something. For anything. And when I gave her nothing, just silence wrapped in stillness, her eyes watered. She cleared her throat and said, "Do you still love me?" I looked at her. Really looked. And in that moment, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw the woman who told me once a month was enough, who rolled her eyes when I danced in the kitchen, who stared at her phone while I tried to talk about my day. "I don't know," I said finally. "I think I loved someone who doesn't live here anymore." She blinked fast, like that would stop the sting. "It's me," she said. "I'm still here." But she wasn't. Not the version of her I gave years to. Not the one who used to laugh at my bad jokes or wrap her arms around me in the morning without needing a reason. That woman had vanished. Quietly. And now, she was trying to put the costume back on, hoping I wouldn't notice the difference. I stood up, thanked her for dinner, and left my plate half finished. She followed me to the hallway. "I'm trying now," she said, almost pleading. "Can't you see that?" I turned to her. "Calm. I see it. I just don't know if it's real, or if it's fear." Her face collapsed a little. She didn't argue, didn't deny it. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. That night, I slept soundly, for the first time in weeks. Not because things were better, but because clarity is its own kind of peace. And in that peace, I realized I was no longer fighting for something she'd already let die. I didn't change my routine, but she started changing hers. She began waking up earlier, making breakfast like she used to. Eggs, toast, sometimes pancakes. She'd place the plate down gently in front of me, watching my face like it held the answers she didn't know how to ask. I'd thank her, eat in silence, and leave. No compliments, no warmth, just civility, the same kind she'd given me for months. She started asking questions. Not real ones, more like probes. "How was work? Did you see that new series? I was thinking we could go somewhere this weekend." I didn't respond with hostility, just indifference, because I wasn't punishing her. I was simply done performing. She even started dressing differently, nicer clothes around the house, makeup on at breakfast, as if packaging could rewind time. But I'd already stopped looking at her like someone I wanted to impress. That Thursday, her sister showed up. Maya had always been a background presence, occasional holidays, birthdays. But this time, she came alone, a strange look on her face. She caught me in the garage. "She's scared," Maya said quietly. "Says you're slipping away." I didn't respond. "She called me last night crying. She thinks you're seeing someone." I shook my head. "I'm not." Maya sighed. I think this was a wake-up call for her. I leaned against the workbench. Funny how people only wake up when they feel what they've been giving. She nodded slowly. "You were always the steady one." I think she got used to that. I looked at her. Maybe that was my mistake. As she left, she said one last thing. She thought you'd always chase, that you'd always forgive, that you'd wait. But I wasn't waiting anymore. The next morning, I took the long route to work. Stopped for coffee. Sat in my car, windows down, breeze cutting through the stillness. And for the first time in a long time, I felt weightless. Because I had nothing left to prove. I wasn't angry. I wasn't trying to win her back. I was just done living like I needed to be chosen. She had asked for space. Now she was drowning in it. And I was just learning how to breathe on my own. She started folding my laundry again. Not because I asked. Because she didn't know what else to do. She left little notes in my work bag. Hope today goes smooth. Miss hearing your laugh. They were polite. Harmless. Too late. She started showing up in the living room during the shows I watched. Pretending to scroll through her phone, but her eyes flicked toward me too often. Her silence wasn't comfortable anymore. It was restless. She was trying. That much was clear. But her trying wasn't about love. It was about losing control. I used to crave those efforts. Now, they landed like static. Background noise in a station I'd already tuned out. That night, she waited until I turned off the bedroom light before whispering, "I've been thinking, maybe we could go back to therapy." I stared into the darkness. Therapy doesn't work when the symptoms are treated, but the disease is denial. She didn't reply. She just turned over, pulling the blanket to her chin. I got up before sunrise the next day, packed a gym bag, left a coffee brewing, and walked out without saying goodbye. The silence I once feared had become a ritual I didn't mind. At the gym, I saw her again, Emma. Bright-eyed. Focused. She worked there. Always said hello, always asked about my day. We weren't friends, not really. But her presence didn't carry the weight of disappointment. She didn't expect anything from me. That afternoon, I got home to candles burning in the kitchen. Steak. Wine. That same playlist she once made me for our anniversary. She stood there, trying to smile like nothing had fractured. I sat down, ate in silence. When she tried to reminisce, I gave her nothing back. She touched my arm. I gently moved to grab my glass. No rejection. No welcome. Just absence. Later, she asked, "Do you ever think about starting fresh?" I looked at her. I already did. Her lips parted like she wanted to protest. But I didn't wait for her reply. I walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and sat down with a book. I didn't need closure. I didn't need revenge. I just needed my peace. That night, she cried in the hallway. I heard it, but I didn't get up. Because sometimes, healing means not rushing to comfort the very silence that once made you feel invisible. I didn't pack bags in secret. I packed in daylight. Box by box. Room by room. Nothing dramatic. No threats. Just action. She asked once, "Are you going somewhere?" I said, "Eventually." That was it. No timeline. No confrontation. Just inevitability. She began orbiting me like a planet chasing gravity it once ignored. Asking if I wanted coffee. Offering back rubs. Suggesting we take a walk. Something we hadn't done in nearly a year. I declined. Politely. Always politely. Because this wasn't about bitterness. It was about boundaries. I started sleeping in the guest room. She said the bed felt cold without me. I said I'd gotten used to that feeling. She tried cooking every night. Setting the table like we were still something worth sitting down for. One evening, she lit candles and wore the dress she knew I liked. The one from our 5th anniversary. She waited for a reaction. I gave her none. Not because she didn't look beautiful, but because beauty doesn't fix erosion. Later, she followed me to the living room. "I miss you," she whispered. I didn't flinch. I just stared at the wall, letting the words float and sink on their own. "I've changed," she said, voice cracking. I nodded. "You changed too late." Her tears came then. Real ones. Quiet, slow, guilty tears. But by then, I was already miles away emotionally. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. The next morning, I made breakfast. For myself. Ate on the porch. Let the silence of birds and early wind do more for me than her apologies ever could. She joined me with a mug of coffee. Sat without speaking. Eyes on the horizon, not on me. "I thought love would be enough," she finally said. I sipped my drink. So did I? Until I realized I was loving alone. She didn't argue. Didn't beg. Because even she could feel it now. How far I drifted while she was busy rationing affection like it cost her something. And in that moment, for the first time, I think she understood. It's not the silence that breaks a man. It's realizing he was always talking to a wall. She stood in the hallway the morning I moved out. No makeup. No armor. Just eyes swollen from a night of silence she couldn't sleep through. My bags were by the door. Nothing heavy. Just essentials. The rest, I'd leave behind. Memories weren't worth boxing. She opened her mouth, closed it. Tried again. I didn't think you'd actually go, she said. I zipped the final bag. You stopped seeing me a long time ago. I just returned the favor. Her shoulders dropped like my words weighed more than she expected. Maybe they did. She followed me to the car, watched as I placed everything in the trunk. You're not angry? She asked. I shook my head. I was. But then I realized. Anger means I still care enough to burn. Now, I just want peace. She stepped back, biting her lip. That old nervous gesture I once found endearing. Now it felt like déjà vu in a story already written. Is there someone else? No. I met her eyes. There's just me now. And that's enough. She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. I got in. Started the engine. Didn't rush. Didn't linger. And then, before pulling away, I looked at her one last time. She whispered, Do you still love me? I paused. Not for drama. Just honesty. I'm more than that version of us already. Whatever this is now, it's not love. It's the echo of something that wasn't watered. She stepped back. No scream. No plea. Just quiet resignation. And that was the most honest thing we'd shared in months. I drove to my new apartment. Small. Bright. No ghosts in the walls. Emma helped me carry a few things. She didn't ask questions. She didn't pry. She just said, Feels like a good space to start breathing again. I agreed. That evening, I unpacked alone, opened a beer, sat on the balcony, watched the city hum. No buzzing phone. No anxious glances. Just stillness. Not emptiness. Just space. Space to reclaim the parts of me I'd loaned out in the name of keeping peace. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. That was the real ending. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just the quiet moment a man finally stops apologizing for his absence in a story that no longer needed him. The final chapter wasn't revenge. It was reclaiming the right to be whole, without permission. She once told me once a month was enough. Now she knew what never again really felt like. And I didn't need to explain it. I just needed to live it. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.